Stop what you are doing right now. What I am about to share with you over the next 35 minutes may be the most important conversation you have had all year about your health and your independence. Here is the number that stopped me cold when I first read it: 61%. That is how much lower your risk of rapid functional decline becomes when you maintain just 4 of the 6 habits I am going to walk you through today. 61%. That is not a rounding error. That is the difference between driving yourself to the grocery store at 82 and needing someone to drive you. A landmark 12-year study from the Stanford Center on Longevity tracked over 4,200 adults between the ages of 70 and 90. What the researchers discovered challenged everything the medical community assumed about aging and independence. The people who stayed sharpest, strongest, and most autonomous well into their 80s were not on the most expensive supplements. They were not the ones with the best genetics. They were the ones who had quietly built a very specific set of daily behaviors, some so simple they almost seemed too humble to be life-saving. Now, here is what I need to tease before we go any further. The number one habit on this list, the most powerful of all 6, is something almost nobody talks about. Your cardiologist has almost certainly never mentioned it. It has nothing to do with diet in the traditional sense, nothing to do with cardiovascular exercise. But research coming out of Johns Hopkins and the University of Edinburgh suggests it may be the single most important predictor of whether you maintain your cognitive independence past 75. I am going to reveal it at the very end of this video, and I promise you it is going to surprise you. Stay with me, because the number one habit is the one that ties everything else together. Before we go any further, drop your age in the comments right now. 68, 74, 81. Tell me which of these 6 habits you think you are already doing. I read every single comment on this channel. Everyone. Your experience matters to this community. And one more thing before we begin. Everything I share today is based on published peer-reviewed research and more than 2 decades of clinical work with patients in their 70s and 80s. But your health is unique. Always confirm with your personal physician before making any changes. Scientific references are in the description below so you can verify everything yourself. I have spent my career working specifically in this age group, and one thing I can tell you from experience is this. When I compare patients who age well to those who decline rapidly, the difference is almost never what you would expect. It is not wealth. It is not geography. It is not even how sick they were at 65. It is the daily habits, the quiet, consistent, almost boring behaviors that stack invisibly over years until the gap between 2 people of the same age becomes startling. That gap is what this video is about. Now, let us count down from habit 6 to habit 1, starting with something that sounds almost too simple to be life-changing, but the biology underneath it is anything but simple. Habit number 6, and I need you to hear this carefully. I have watched this single change transform patients who had been struggling for years without understanding why. Strategic hydration, not casual hydration, strategic. Here is what most people profoundly misunderstand about water after the age of 75. They assume hydration works the same way it did at 55. It absolutely does not. After age 70, your kidneys lose approximately 40% of their filtering efficiency. Your body's thirst signals become genuinely blunted. This is not a metaphor. The hypothalamus, the brain region that normally signals you to reach for a glass of water, becomes measurably less sensitive with age. You can be significantly dehydrated and feel nothing, no thirst, no warning, just a slow, invisible erosion of function happening beneath your awareness. Think of your bloodstream as a river delivery system. When that river runs low, the delivery trucks slow down. Packages get lost. The whole operation starts breaking down. That is exactly what chronic mild dehydration does inside the aging body. It does not feel catastrophic. That is precisely why it is so dangerous. It quietly degrades everything at once. A study published in the European Journal of Nutrition followed 3,500 adults over the age of 70. Those who maintained consistent daily hydration above 1.8 liters showed 38% lower rates of urinary tract infections, 29% fewer falls, and significantly better scores on short-term memory assessments. The brain is approximately 75% water. Even a 2% reduction in hydration causes measurable cognitive impairment at any age. After 75, that effect is amplified because your brain's compensatory mechanisms are already working harder just to maintain baseline function. But here is the critical difference between people who get results and people who just drink more water and wonder why nothing changes. The timing is everything. 12 to 16 ounces first thing in the morning, before coffee, before breakfast, before anything. Your body loses fluid overnight through breathing and minor perspiration, and after 75, your overnight fluid deficit runs about 30% higher than it did in midlife. You wake up more depleted than you realize every single morning, then a small glass with each meal, and one glass mid-afternoon. That is the pattern. But here is the synergy element that almost nobody teaches. Pair that morning water with a small amount of sodium, not table salt, a pinch of high-quality sea salt, or a basic electrolyte tablet from any pharmacy. After 75, your kidneys become less efficient at retaining sodium. Without that sodium, plain water passes through your system without being fully absorbed into the cells where it is actually needed. You can drink 8 glasses a day and still be functionally dehydrated at the cellular level. I treated a patient who represents a pattern I have seen dozens of times. Let us call her Sandra, a woman in her late 70s, retired, still active in her community, but she came in complaining of afternoon confusion, dizziness when standing, and what she described as thinking through syrup. Her blood work was not alarming. She was chronically, mildly underhydrated. We made one change: strategic timing with a small electrolyte addition in the morning. 6 weeks later, she called to say it felt like someone had cleaned the windows of her mind. One habit. That kind of result. But if you think hydration is powerful, wait until you hear what comes next. Because this second habit addresses something that affects nearly every person over 75 who does not know about it, and most do not. Habit number 5, resistance-based movement, at least twice per week. And I need to be extremely clear about what I mean here, because this is the most misunderstood recommendation in all of senior health. I am not talking about a gym. I am not talking about heavy weights. I am talking about any movement that asks your muscles to work against a force, a resistance band, a light dumbbell, a wall push-up, carrying groceries with intention rather than just surviving the trip from the car. After age 75, your muscle cells develop what researchers call anabolic resistance. Picture your muscles as employees who need a louder signal to hear the same instruction. In a 35-year-old, a moderate workout sends a clear message: build and repair. In a 75-year-old, that same signal arrives muffled. Your muscles need more specific, more intentional stimulus to respond at all. Without that stimulus, they begin a process called sarcopenia, the progressive loss of muscle mass and strength. And sarcopenia is not a cosmetic problem. Research from the Mayo Clinic links it to a 47% increased risk of falls, a 53% higher likelihood of being unable to perform basic daily tasks within 5 years, and a measurably shortened overall lifespan. A study from Tufts University followed adults aged 75 to 85 who began twice-weekly resistance training. After just 10 weeks, participants showed an average 37% increase in leg strength, a 28% improvement in balance scores, and something that genuinely surprised me when I first read it: a significant improvement in insulin sensitivity, which directly affects your energy, your systemic inflammation, and your cognitive function. These systems are deeply interconnected. Here is the mental image I want you to hold. The mitochondria inside your muscle cells are essentially tiny power plants. After 75, many of yours are running at reduced capacity, like old generators that have not been serviced in years. Resistance exercise does not just build muscle. It regenerates the actual energy infrastructure of your cells. You are rebuilding your biological power grid from the inside. The practical prescription: 2 sessions per week, 20 to 30 minutes each. Focus on the large muscle groups, legs, hips, and back. Resistance bands are ideal because they provide progressive challenge without jarring the joints. And here is the timing detail that can double your results. Perform your resistance session within 30 minutes of consuming 25 to 30 grams of protein. After 75, the window during which your muscles can most efficiently absorb protein for repair is shorter and less forgiving than it was in your 40s. Timing is not optional here. It is what makes the biology actually work. Now, if you are finding this video genuinely useful, this would be the right moment to hit that like button, not because I need the number, but because the algorithm uses that signal to show this information to people who have never found it any other way. Someone watching right now has a parent who needs to hear what comes next. Your like gets it there. Habit number 4, maintaining a consistent, purposeful sleep schedule. This is far more complex than simply going to bed earlier, because after 75, sleep itself changes in ways that most people do not understand, and that misunderstanding costs them dearly. Your brain produces roughly 70% less melatonin than it did at age 30. Your slow-wave sleep, the deepest and most physically restorative phase, decreases by up to 80% from what it was in your 30s. 80%. And slow-wave sleep is the phase during which your body releases growth hormone, the hormone responsible for cellular repair, immune restoration, and muscle maintenance. Every night you lose deep sleep, your body falls further behind on its repair schedule. And after a certain point, the deficit cannot be recovered overnight. But here is what alarms me most clinically. And I want you to pay very close attention to this next part. A study from the University of California, Berkeley, found that adults over 70 with disrupted sleep patterns showed a 68% higher accumulation of amyloid plaques in the brain, the same plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. 68%. Your brain quite literally cleans itself during deep sleep through a process called glymphatic clearance, where cerebrospinal fluid washes metabolic waste from your neural tissue. Disrupt that process consistently over years, and the consequences are not subtle. They are not temporary. They compound. What do seniors who sleep exceptionally well actually do differently? They do not just sleep more, they sleep consistently. Same bedtime within the same 30-minute window every night, same wake time every morning, including weekends, no exceptions. The bedroom stays cool, between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Because your body's temperature regulation during sleep becomes less reliable after 75, and a cooler environment actively supports the deep sleep phases your brain requires. They avoid screens for 60 minutes before bed, not only because of blue light, but because mental stimulation keeps the prefrontal cortex in an active state in ways that delay sleep onset by an average of 47 minutes in adults over 70, according to research from Harvard Medical School. That is nearly a full hour of lost sleep opportunity, stolen quietly every single night. The synergy element. Pair your consistent sleep schedule with 10 minutes of slow diaphragmatic breathing immediately before lying down. 4 counts in, hold for 4, 8 counts out. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system, your body's genuine rest and repair mode. Research shows this practice reduces nighttime cortisol by up to 22%, making it significantly easier to reach and maintain the slow-wave sleep your brain is quietly craving every single night. Habit number 3. Eating protein in a deliberate, distributed pattern. The myth I need to dismantle here is the idea that you need less protein as you age. This is not just wrong. It may be one of the most harmful pieces of nutritional folklore passed down through generations of well-meaning but incomplete medical advice, and most routine appointments never have time to correct it. The truth is precisely the opposite. After 75, due to anabolic resistance, your body requires 50 to 75% more dietary protein per pound of body weight than a healthy 30-year-old needs to achieve the same muscle maintenance effect. 50 to 75% more, not less, more. Yet the majority of seniors I see are eating approximately half the protein their body actually needs. Appetite decreases with age, high carbohydrate foods feel easier to prepare, and nobody has ever sat down and explained what that protein deficit actually costs over months and years. Here's the way I explain it. Think of protein as the bricks your body uses to rebuild itself overnight. Every night, your body tears down old, damaged tissue and replaces it with new. This is normal biological maintenance, but without enough bricks, the reconstruction is incomplete. Over months, over years, the structural deficit compounds. It does not announce itself dramatically. It just shows up eventually as unexpected weakness, a misjudged step, a fall that should not have happened. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, following over 2,700 adults aged 70 to 85, found that those who consumed at least 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight daily, distributed across 3 or more meals, maintained significantly more lean muscle mass. had 41% lower rates of hospitalization from fall-related injuries, and showed markedly better immune response to common infections. The practical approach: 25 to 35 grams of protein at each of your 3 main meals. That is approximately 4 to 5 ounces of chicken, fish, eggs, Greek yogurt, or legumes per meal. And here is the precision detail most people never learn. Aging muscles can only effectively utilize approximately 35 to 40 grams of protein per sitting for actual tissue synthesis. Beyond that threshold, the excess is burned for energy rather than used for repair. Spreading protein across meals means every gram goes to work building something. The synergy tip: pair your protein meals with a small source of vitamin C, an orange segment, some bell pepper, a splash of lemon juice over fish. Vitamin C is essential for collagen synthesis, which works in direct partnership with dietary protein to maintain not just muscle, but the connective tissue and structural integrity that determine how well your body holds together under the demands of daily life. Now, we are about to cover the top 2 habits on this list, and I want you to know that these are the ones most physicians never bring up in a standard appointment, and most people never expect to find them in a video about physical health. Habit number 2, daily intentional social engagement. When I say social engagement in a clinical setting, the response is often the same. That sounds nice, but is that really in the same category as hydration and protein? So let me give you the data. A study from Brigham Young University analyzing data from over 300,000 adults across multiple decades found that social isolation carries a mortality risk equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. Let me say that again so it lands. Being chronically socially isolated is as dangerous to your lifespan as smoking 15 cigarettes every single day. That is not a soft wellness finding. That is one of the hardest numbers in modern epidemiology. For adults over 75 specifically, the National Institute on Aging found that loneliness accelerates cognitive decline by up to 64%, increases the risk of dementia by 41%, and dramatically elevates inflammatory markers in the blood, specifically interleukin-6 and C-reactive protein, that directly damage cardiovascular tissue, immune function, and the neural architecture you need to stay sharp. Here is the biological mechanism. Meaningful social interaction triggers the release of oxytocin. Oxytocin suppresses cortisol, and chronically elevated cortisol functions like a slow acid on your neural tissue, your immune cells, and the lining of your blood vessels. When genuine connection raises oxytocin, that biochemical damage slows, inflammation drops, and the prefrontal cortex becomes activated in ways that keep neural pathways dense and firing. Think of your social brain as a garden. The neurons that activate during real conversation, shared laughter, disagreement, and emotional connection, these are the same neurons that maintain your memory, your decision-making, and your sense of self. When those neurons go quiet for weeks at a time, they begin to prune. After 75, neuroplasticity has already decreased meaningfully. Unused pathways are harder to restore. The window is not closed, but it is narrower. The prescription: at least one meaningful in-person social interaction every single day. A genuinely engaged phone call counts. A community group, a faith gathering, a walking partner, a regular lunch with a neighbor. What does not provide the full neurological benefit is passive social presence. You must be thinking, responding, laughing, disagreeing, sharing something real. That active engagement is the stimulus. I want to tell you about a pattern I have witnessed many times. A woman in her early 80s came to see me 8 months after losing her husband of more than 5 decades. She had withdrawn almost completely from social contact. On standardized cognitive assessments, she had declined measurably in less than a year of isolation. We did not change her medications. We built her a social schedule, a weekly book club, a daily 20-minute phone call with friends and family on a rotating basis, a twice-weekly volunteer shift at her local library. 8 months later, her cognitive scores had returned to near baseline. Her inflammatory markers had dropped significantly. Her daughter called me and said, "She seems like herself again." Social engagement at this stage of life is not a lifestyle luxury. It is a biological necessity. The synergy tip: combine your social engagement with physical movement whenever you can. A walk with a friend, a gentle exercise class alongside others. Research from the University of British Columbia shows that combining social interaction with even light physical activity produces a synergistic increase in brain-derived neurotrophic factor that is significantly greater than either behavior alone. BDNF is essentially fertilizer for your brain cells. Every way you can generate more of it works in your favor. Now, here is where most people watching a video like this would normally stop. They feel informed, they feel motivated, they close the window. Do not do that, because what comes next is what I promised you at the very beginning. The number one habit on this list, the one that fewer than 12% of adults over 75 maintain consistently. The one that researchers at Johns Hopkins have called the most underutilized longevity intervention available to aging adults without a prescription. The one that makes every other habit on this list work better. Habit number 1, daily purposeful cognitive challenge. And let me be specific, because this is almost certainly not what you are expecting. I am not talking about crossword puzzles. I am not talking about passive reading. I am talking about the daily practice of learning something genuinely new, a skill, a language, a musical instrument, a new creative medium, something that forces your brain into a state of productive discomfort, something you are not already good at. Here is why this is number 1. After the age of 75, your brain begins to preferentially rely on established neural pathways. It becomes extraordinarily efficient at doing familiar things and extraordinarily resistant to building new ones. This is not a character flaw. It is a survival mechanism, an aging brain conserving metabolic energy by defaulting to the known. But here is what that preference costs you. Cognitive reserve is the brain's resilience buffer. Its capacity to absorb age-related structural changes and continue functioning at a high level. Think of it as RAM in a computer. The more cognitive reserve you have, the more damage your brain can absorb before you begin experiencing symptoms of decline. And novel learning that requires genuine effort and genuine unfamiliarity, is the single most effective way to build and protect that reserve. Research from the University of Edinburgh's Lothian birth cohort study, following over 1,000 adults from their 70s into their late 80s, found that those who engaged in genuinely novel cognitive activities for at least 30 minutes per day showed a 47% slower rate of brain atrophy on MRI scans. They maintained significantly better processing speed and episodic memory, and they were 38% less likely to receive a dementia diagnosis over the following decade. 38% from a behavioral habit, not from a medication, not from an expensive intervention, from how they chose to spend 30 minutes of their day. A separate study from the Rush Memory and Aging Project found that seniors who described their daily lives as intellectually engaging showed brain function equivalent to adults 10 years younger on standardized neurological assessments, 10 years younger from a daily habit. Neuroplasticity declines with age, but it never disappears. Not at 75, not at 82, not at 88. Learning a new language activates 5 distinct regions of the brain simultaneously. Studies from the American Academy of Neurology show it delays dementia onset by an average of 4.5 years. Learning a musical instrument coordinates fine motor control, auditory processing, memory, and emotional regulation in ways no other single activity replicates. Even learning to cook a new cuisine from scratch, requiring reading, planning, sensory attention, and motor coordination together, provides genuine cognitive stimulus. The productive discomfort is the mechanism. The frustration of not yet being good at something is the signal that new neural connections are forming. That is exactly what you are after. Let me tell you about a patient whose story I think about often. He represents something I have seen repeatedly in retired professionals. A man approaching 80, career engineer, built things his whole life. The first few years of retirement, he did very little that genuinely challenged his thinking. Comfortable routines, familiar television. He came in noticing increasing difficulty with names and following complex conversations. His cognitive reserve scores were lower than I wanted to see for his age. I gave him one prescription. Pick something he had always wanted to learn and do it for at least 30 minutes every day. He chose oil painting. He had never held an artist's brush in his life. He was, by his own cheerful description, objectively terrible for the first 2 months. At the 18-month mark, he had completed 23 paintings and joined a local art group, simultaneously addressing habit number 2 on this list. His follow-up cognitive assessments showed measurable improvement in 3 of 5 domains. Improvement, not stabilization. Improvement, past 78 years old. Sandra, who had been following this protocol from the beginning, chose to learn conversational Spanish. She had always wanted to travel and never believed she could learn a language. By month 4, she was having simple conversations with her neighbor. She told me at her 6-month visit that it was the first thing in years that made her feel like her mind was growing rather than just maintaining. The synergy tip for habit number 1: pair your daily cognitive practice with omega-3 fatty acids, specifically DHA, found in fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines, or in a quality fish oil supplement. Research from the Framingham Heart Study shows that adults with higher DHA levels demonstrate significantly greater neuroplasticity responses to cognitive training. DHA does not do the learning for you, but it helps your brain absorb the benefit of what you are learning. Think of it as the soil that makes the seeds take root. Now, before I give you the complete protocol, I need to do something most health videos skip entirely, because skipping it is exactly why most people try something for 3 days and stop. I need to tell you honestly what the first few weeks actually feel like. Week 1. If you are not used to the morning hydration volume, you will notice more bathroom trips in the first 4 to 5 days. That normalizes. Your muscles will be sore after your first resistance sessions, peaking around day 2 or 3. That soreness is not damage. It is the signal the stimulus landed. Your sleep may not improve immediately. The circadian system needs approximately 10 to 14 days to recalibrate around a new consistent schedule. Week 2. Most people notice the first real shift in afternoon energy somewhere between day 10 and 12. The morning hydration routine stops feeling like a task and starts feeling like what you do. Protein distribution becomes more natural once you have learned what the amounts actually look like on a plate. Week 3. This is the week things start to compound. Sleep quality improving noticeably, morning fog lifting faster, resistance training feeling more controlled, novel learning sessions beginning to produce something recognizable, a phrase in a new language, a chord that sounds right. This is where the biology starts paying you back for your consistency. Week 4 and beyond, measurable changes, grip strength if you track it, balance and reaction time, cognitive clarity in the late afternoon when it used to dip. These are the outcomes of consistent biology doing exactly what it is designed to do when given what it actually needs. Most people quit after 3 days because nobody warned them about days 3 through 10. You now know. The discomfort in that first window is the mechanism of adaptation. Push through it, and the biology on the other side is worth every difficult morning. Here is your complete daily framework. Morning. Wake within the same 30-minute window every day. Before anything else, 12 to 16 ounces of water with a pinch of sea salt or a basic electrolyte tablet. Within the first 2 hours, your first high-protein meal, 25 to 30 grams, eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, whatever works for your preferences, late morning or early afternoon. Your second high-protein meal, same target range. If today is a training day, this is the ideal time for your resistance session. 2 sessions per week, 20 to 30 minutes, large muscle groups. After your session, eat within 30 minutes. This is also your social connection moment. A phone call, a brief visit, a lunch with someone. Active engagement, not passive presence. Mid-afternoon, another glass of water, your novel learning session. 30 minutes minimum. Turn off the television. Sit with what you are learning and give it your complete attention. The struggle is the point. Evening. Your third high-protein meal with a small source of vitamin C. Use the dinner table as a genuine social moment. Screens off 60 minutes before bed. 10 minutes of slow breathing. 4 counts in, hold for 4, 8 counts out. Bedroom between 65 and 68 degrees. Then sleep within the same 30-minute window every single night. Before I close, something I need to say clearly. If you are currently on prescription medications, please do not change them based on anything in this video. These 6 habits are designed to work alongside your existing medical care, not replace it. Bring this video to your next appointment. Print the references from the description below. Ask your physician what they think. A doctor who genuinely has your best interests at heart will welcome that conversation and may have important context specific to your individual situation. All scientific references are in the description below. including journals, publication years, and search terms so you can verify everything yourself. Now let me close with something I mean sincerely. I have spent more than 2 decades working with patients in their 70s and 80s, and one of the things that troubles me most about the medical system we have built is how often this period of life is treated as a countdown rather than a continuation. How often people are handed a list of restrictions instead of a map of possibilities. How often the clinical conversation is about managing decline rather than building resilience. The research I shared with you today points towards something medicine is only beginning to fully appreciate, that the human body and mind at 75, at 80, at 85 retain a remarkable and often underestimated capacity for adaptation and strength, not despite age, but in honest conversation with it. The 6 habits we covered today: strategic hydration, twice weekly resistance movement, consistent purposeful sleep, distributed protein intake, daily genuine social connection, and daily deliberate cognitive challenge. These are not about reversing time. They are about making the most extraordinary possible use of the time that is still yours. They are about carrying your own groceries, remembering every grandchild's name, driving yourself to your own appointments, laughing until your eyes water at dinner with someone who matters to you. That is what independence at 80 looks like. And I have seen it with my own eyes in patients who arrived having been told there was nothing left to optimize. It is never too late to begin. If you are ready to take control of your health, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. I have much more to show you. Because next week, I am sharing something I consider even more urgent for anyone over 70, something that affects the majority of seniors without them ever connecting their daily symptoms to the real biological cause, something that almost no standard medical appointment covers. You will not want to miss it. Type 1 finished in the comments if you made it all the way here. Then share this with one person who needs it. Today, not tomorrow. Your parent, your sibling, your neighbor, the friend who has been quietly struggling and does not know why, because the most valuable thing you can give someone you love is information that might preserve their independence. Your health matters, and you are worth every minute of this conversation.